This is the Anything But Banker to Broker podcast. We're going to be talking to some of the industry's best and brightest about the unique pathways they took before stepping into broking and how it set them up for success. Thanks for listening. So today's guest is Dan Bercolli. I was very looking forward to having Dan on for the reason that me and him have actually walked the same path. And at the time when I was thinking about setting up FinTalent, he'd actually reached out to me in my loan market days, and he was thinking about becoming a broker. But before being a recruiter, he was actually a lawyer as well. So he's had two really key major pivots. Dan, how are you getting on, mate?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks. Great to be on here and keen to have a little bit of a chat about my journey, our journey as mates and kind of colleagues and kind of competitors at some time. So yeah, it should be fun. Looking forward to getting out there.
Yeah, I appreciate you jumping on and doing it, mate. So before we get into it, I always like to ask, where does the drive come from? What did you see your parents doing when you were growing up?
Yep. So my upbringing was, I don't know if it's like unique or anything specific, but my parents weren't like professional or in any kind of super big career situation. So I'm 35 now. And so at that time in that generation, mum was just like a stay-at-home mum looking after me and my sister. And dad was just kind of between odd jobs. He never really got into like a career or anything. Background, he's actually like his family immigrated over from Italy when he was like younger and were farmers. So like they farmed up in Cairns and then came down to Brisbane in like his late teens, early 20s, I think. And he kind of like didn't really get the opportunity to do a trade or anything like that. So just kind of worked odd jobs and tried to make ends meet. And then early like high school for me, I think it was probably 13, 14, they kind of accidentally got involved in like commercial cleaning to help a friend out. And then they started subcontracting to this guy and having their own job. So they did commercial cleaning for like 6 or 7 years. And then they ended up doing all right out of it and making a little bit of money and buying themselves like a coffee shop, which was one of their kind of like, I don't know, I guess dreams to own a coffee shop, being an Italian man, he wanted to own a coffee shop. So they bought that in Brisbane City in like probably 2008 or 10 maybe. And then ran that till about COVID, which was pretty unfortunate, obviously, but it just kind of shut the whole city down. So they basically just had to close that business down. They bought another coffee shop like kind of halfway through in like Macrobat for anybody up in Brizzy here. And so they had two at a time and I kind of worked through them throughout uni and stuff like that to just, have a job, do something, drink free coffee basically. So, but yeah, they were, like I said, didn't really have professional careers. It's not like something that my dad was a banker, so I was a banker or a lawyer or anything for that matter. I was just kind of cut my own path, very different to them with their encouragement, which was nice.
Right. And that coffee shop plays a fairly big part in where we are today later down the line, but we won't jump too far ahead.
Yeah, 100%.
Mate, obviously, when me and you got speaking, I had no idea you previously had worked as a lawyer because all I knew you as was Dan Bercolli, the finance and mortgage broking recruiter who fell in love with it and wanted to become a broker himself. But talk me through school. Where did you find that passion to be a lawyer?
I was in like primary school and everybody just used to say I was good at arguing, so I should be a lawyer. And I didn't really think too much about it. I just went through high school. I was decent at school, got good grades without really putting too much effort in. I'd always kind of do well in class. And it was always just pressed into me like, you're good at talking, you're good at arguing, be a lawyer, because my parents didn't do anything. So they're like encouraging to who doesn't want their kid to be a doctor or a lawyer, an engineer or something, big money, big professions. I just kind of pursued that, went through school and directed myself towards that, went to uni, did Bachelor of Law, Bachelor of Commerce, because I didn't mind like the accounting business side. My backup was going to be an accountant, but went through law, met some great people. And then I kind of focused down the law side, finished up. And then I was working at their coffee shop in the city while I was studying law. And in my last year, I would always talk to customers and there was a couple of law firms in the building. One of them, like I went and did work experience with them for like every day for about every week, once a week for like 6 months. And then they offered me a job because they're like, you work at the coffee shop from like 5 to 8, then you come and work here all day. Like that's pretty good dedication. They offered me a job with them. That was a personal injuries law firm and worked with them for a few years. They were like a family run business. We used to get a lot of our work from insurance companies. We're on the defendant side. So insurance companies, and then work slowed down. So there wasn't really a position for me there. And then I was kind of like mid-20s at this point and still not super experienced at much. And then went into the civil litigation, my next law job, which was civil litigation and like intellectual property stuff. I had a mate that worked at the firm and he just said, "Oh, look, we're looking for a junior lawyer if you want to come across." Went and worked with them for a couple of years as well. And then COVID kind of hit and got made redundant. And I was like 30 and looking for my next thing.
And before we rush ahead to what that looks like, I want to really unpack the law stuff. So you started off, you said, doing in personal insurance type law.
Yeah, so it was insurance based, but personal injuries law. So our firm was on the defendant side, which is working for insurers with like car accidents, work cover claims, and a little bit of like medical negligence as well. So essentially, someone has a car accident, makes a claim, they want to claim, $1 million for a broken finger. We come in and go, "You're not getting $1 million for that. Here's like $30,000." And then you basically just negotiate your way to some settlement, not always a midpoint. And so, yeah, basically just trying to keep the insurance costs down for insurers and make sure that people aren't taking advantage. It's a statutory scheme, so anyone makes a claim unless you're fraudulent basically gets something. And so there's a lot of incentive for people to kind of just make a claim, especially if they've got a friend, relative at a barbecue that's like, "Oh, you had an accident, you should go and make a claim because you've got a sore neck or something." So yeah, did that for, I think it was probably about 4 years, that area of law, which was interesting. And yeah, had a great like team of people there as well because they were all kind of long-term and family. So they were all pretty decent.
Is that, I mean, I can already imagine the answer is no, probably because you didn't know what you wanted to do. But when you were studying law, was there any particular discipline of it that you were actually going to try and push yourself into?
I guess the only caveat I had was I didn't want to do the criminal side. You have to be on the criminal side, you have to be pretty passionate about defending or prosecuting. And I wasn't about either. I won't delve into all the whys, but I didn't want to do that. And then so I was just like, I'll be on the civil side. Hadn't really given it a ton of thought. It's hard as like, I think it's actually one of the things young lawyers challenges that they face is like when I was doing this, 15 odd years ago, it's so competitive to get a role that wherever you land a role is basically where you would stay unless you actively move because it's so hard to learn another area of law. So going from personal injuries to litigation was super challenging. Litigation is very broad. You have to really know your shit and be able to work with parties, work with legislation, work on the fly and apply stuff. So it's a big change. But I hadn't really given it too much thought. It was more just like what classes that I'd done well at that I might want to look into. And I'd kind of done well at like taxation and business law, all the finance stuff I'd kind of done good at because I was a bit interested in it. And so it was probably just going to go down like a commercial route, if anything. But again, wherever you secure your first job is like where you kind of stay unless you actively move for a lot of lawyers.
See, I watched Suits when I was studying and I decided that I was going to do a Master's of Law and try and convert from a Bachelor of Business. Obviously, because I'd watched Suits and I was like, wow, this looks like a sexy thing to do.
Yeah.
But without delving too deep into it, like I think probably the same reasons if I was to do it and why I didn't. The criminal side of things, right? It's so you're either for or against. You are defending the crime or prosecuting the crime. You can't pick and choose which side you're on. Like there's some crimes that some should be forgiven, some should never be forgiven, right? So it's hard, and I can understand why you would not want to go down that avenue.
Yeah.
But obviously, my experience with litigation was what I'd seen in Suits. Could you, I guess, for the less unengaged like myself, what was that like?
It's a lot of chasing money and chasing people that have like breached contracts for some reason. So the firm I was with, good firm, pretty well regarded in Brisbane. They're not like a big firm, but they're like, know their shit. And I kind of felt like we were nearly the cleanup crew where people would pass us work to do internal and external. You get thrown all manner of different stuff in litigation. So many different things that you could come across because it's just, chasing money effectively and chasing breaches of contract and things like that. So a lot of back and forth negotiation, working with other parties and trying to apply the law in the best way. But a lot of it is kind of working with people. And I actually didn't really understand that till I got into the litigation side a bit more and then went into the recruitment side. And I was in my interview with recruitment and they were talking about managing stakeholders. And I'd never thought about it, but I'm like, there's so many in law. There's, I want a result. The lawyer on the other side wants a result. My client wants a result. Their client wants a result. Our firms want a result as well. So there's 6 different stakeholders that might want different things in this. And so it's actually a lot of good lawyers, I think, managing and understanding the psychology of others and what they want out of this. Like you always get hit with all the dumb scenarios from friends and family about suing people and all this shit. But it's like, what outcome do you want and why are you doing this? Because you can effectively, my boss at the time at that second firm was like, you can sue anyone for anything, but what are you getting out of it? Like, if there's no point to doing it, and you kind of see that with clients, is some just want their day in court. They just want to have their say regardless of cost. Some just want to recover the money they're owed as the landlord and not do anything additional to the for the client, you know? So you have to kind of assess quite quickly, what does everybody want out of this, and put your own wants aside. A lot of lawyers, it probably attracts people who are pretty egotistical and want to succeed and blah, 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 which is whatever. But you have to kind of put your own prejudices or whatever aside sometimes and go, well, what outcomes does everybody want? And how do I get to that? Regardless of what I want, how do I get to what they want? It's kind of interesting in that path. As I've gotten a bit older, I've reflected on it a bit and thought about all that stuff. And I think you can be a great technical lawyer, but if you don't get along with people or understand what they want, you're going to really struggle, which I kind of noticed at my first law firm as well, between different partners and how they interacted with clients and other lawyers mainly. One of them, the partner I worked under, basically never went to trial. We had to prep for one he hadn't been in like 6 years, and then he ended up settling before. One of the other lawyers at the firm would have a couple of trials a year. So just the way they negotiated got very different results.
From client to lawyer, there'd be a lot of politics as well, right? Because some people, like you said there, just want to recover the money. Some
Yep.
people actually don't give a fuck about the money and want to stain the person's name.
Yep.
And the lawyer might be like, Jesus, I don't want to actively work on a case that might end up staining this person's name. I think it'd be best if me, for my own personal brand as a lawyer, just try and help the client recover money. Is that
Yeah.
something that you would see, like a difference in, like, I guess, what the outcome wants to be for the client and what the lawyer would prefer to pursue?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I was someone who, growing up pretty poor without much, I'm like quite value driven. So when clients, I remember we had this one client who had caused, it was in the litigation firm, but he'd been part of a car accident and was trying to recover money from the other side. And because I'd done PI insurance stuff, they flicked it down to me. And I'm like, this guy's got no claim. This is so ridiculous. And I called the client and said, hey, mate, you like don't really have a leg to stand on here. I don't think it's worth pursuing. And he just like blew up. He was obviously quite well off, and he just blew up about me not knowing anything. And this is ridiculous. We need to pursue it and get a result. So I went to the partner that gave me the matter, and I was just like, what do I do, man? Like, this guy's got no legal leg to stand on. This is ridiculous. And he's like, just write a letter to the other side and kind of keep the guy happy. So we were going down this route of pursual that I knew would never get anywhere. But this guy just wanted to have his say. He didn't care. He was rich. He just wanted me to write letters, getting into the other side and trying to recover and do whatever we could. And I'm sitting there every day being like, what a waste of time and money for this guy. He's not going to get anything out of this. I'm spending, a couple of hours writing up letters, charging him, however many thousands of dollars we're charging him. And it just didn't make any sense to me. But the good thing is you learn to separate your emotional thought process from what the outcome the client was. I'm like, whatever, you want to pay for this and you're consenting to do it, let's go. Like, I'm not going to not do it for you, because this isn't a criminal matter where you might refuse to represent someone that you don't agree with for whatever reason. In this case, I'm like, bloke wants to spend money having a say. Like, I'm not going to do it, another lawyer, he is going to do it. So that's what the partner kind of said to me. Just go and do it for the bloke. He's happy to pay for it. So let's just see if we can get a result. So tends to happen like a little bit, not lots, but like for me, I want to look at something that would have been worth pursuing or recovering on for people. And so values come into it, but you just kind of learn to put them aside, I guess, and do your job. Yeah, I moved. I didn't know what to do. I was 30, and I knew something was wrong because I got made redundant, and I felt like a weight lifted, which is really not what would happen when you get made redundant most of the time, I assume, if you like a job. And so I was 30, and I'm just like, I don't really know if law is like my thing. And I had a good mate I work with. He's still a great mate to this day. I met him at uni, and we used to joke at work all the time in the litigation job. It's like, do we just write letters until we retire? Like, is that our job? We just write letters trying to recover from people and have their say until we die, basically. Is that it? And so I'd finished up that job, and I'm like, I don't really know what to do. It was in COVID. And so my parents' coffee shop, all their staff were casual. So there was no job keeper or anything. So none of the staff would work, and they were still in the buildings. There was still businesses there. And so I was just like, I'll help the parents out for a bit because I don't know what I want to do. And so I went back into the coffee shop. It was the weirdest change ever. I remember going in the first Monday after work, I had like a week off just to chill. And I went back in, and I'm just like, the first day, I'm like, I can't believe I like haven't used my brain all day. This is so weird to go from such a high stress, high pressure environment to just talking shit with people and making coffees. And like, I slipped straight back in to making coffees. It wasn't that hard, but it was just so weird to not be mentally challenged, like, for that period. And so I went back and was helping them out through COVID for a bit of a period and trying to figure out what I wanted to do because I had no idea. My whole life had been geared towards being a lawyer, and I was 30, and I was trying to come to terms personally with maybe this isn't for me. But it's like I've told a few people, I had to take the time to nearly give myself permission to not be a lawyer because it was so ingrained. And so you study, 70K at Hex, 10 years, and I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. But just even being able to tell that to myself was like crazy at the time. Not the only, but one of the positives was because it was COVID, there was like fuck all jobs going. So I couldn't just apply for tons of law jobs and try and get back in. There was nothing happening. So I was forced to take pause, which for the first time ever in my life career, I like stopped and thought about me, career, legacy, like what do I want out of this life? What do I want out of career? And so it took longer than I like thought, but yeah, it was the first time I'd ever stopped and thought about anything or paused because I just had it. I just study, job, finish one job, go to the next job, step through. And I'd never really paused and gone, what do I actually want to do? Like, what do I want to do as a person in this life? So pretty interesting.
You probably sat there stewing, going, I've wasted all this money. I've wasted all this time. And am I actually worthy of doing anything else other than this?
Yeah, and like that was part of it. It's like the sunk cost fallacy, right? I've put all the time and money into I have to do the thing. I've put so much into this, I can't not do it. But like, I don't know, it wasn't sitting right with me. And I knew if I wasn't on Seek, on not even LinkedIn at the time, but on Seek smashing job application, I'm like, if I'm not motivated to go back into this, all I knew is that maybe this isn't for me. So it was just a slow process of working through that and being like, I don't know what I want to do, but if I'm not super driven to do this, it's probably not something I should pursue. And I was in a spot where at the time I didn't like have too many responsibilities, so I could take pause and not have to earn big money or really jump into the next career thing. And it was COVID. No one was doing anything. It was like perfect timing because I couldn't just go and do all those things that everyone could do. You couldn't just go and apply for a ton of jobs because there were none. So I was like, well, can't really do anything. I'm stuck here. So let's just see how we go, wait it out and just see what comes along. Basically, I didn't put any pressure on myself to do anything for like the first time ever. And so not that the coffee shop was fine, but I knew it wasn't a forever thing. And so it was just, let's help out. Let's get through COVID, enjoy the downtime because I'm not working, 60, 70 hours a week. I'm just, slinging coffees and making sandwiches and getting to eat good food every day and drink coffee and talk to people and have a bit of fun. So I'm like, let's just enjoy that, get back into the gym, rediscover a few things I enjoyed when I was younger, and something will come along that grabs my attention when it's kind of ready. So I put it out to the universe for like the first time in my life and just left it, which is very hard for overachieving lawyer who doesn't want to take pause on anything. But that's what I tried to do. Some people's like a third life crisis, 30, like a quarter life, a third life crisis. Existentially, I'm like, I don't know what to do, so I just won't do anything.
What did come along, Dan? Because someone walked into your coffee shop or had been walking into your coffee shop.
Yes, there was my next job, Fuse came from this. There was a recruitment firm, Fuse, around the corner, and all these people that would cut from there. So there was about 4 or 5 of them that would come in every day and drink coffee. And the CEO was one of them. He's really lovely, friendly guy. We would like talk shit and banter all the time. And we were just talking, and I knew one of the BDMs from Fuse quite well. We just struck up a really good relationship at the coffee shop because he'd come in literally every day, and he was buying a house. I'd just gone through buying a house. So we'd talk about the house stuff all the time. And I got really friendly with him, and he's like, oh, I've never seen you here. What's your background? And I told him I was a lawyer and all this stuff. And he's like, what are you doing here? Like everybody does. And then a couple of weeks later, he was like, do you want to like do recruitment? I'm like, what's that, dude? I don't even know what that is. And so he gave me a bit of a rough rundown on what recruitment is. And I'm like, I didn't even know this was a thing. And I basically said, yeah, fuck, mate. I don't really care. Like I need a job that's not a coffee shop. So I'll try it. And then he's like, yeah, cool. Reach out to our kind of branch manager and just let him know we've had the chat, blah, blah. And then I sat on it for a few weeks and like didn't do it because I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't know what it is. It couldn't be fucked. I just, again, paralysis by analysis, right? Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. So it was easier to not do anything. And then the CEO came in and he's always called me Dano. And he came in, he's like, Dano. He's like, what's going on, mate? He's like, I heard you coming to work for me. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like that was the BDM, spoke to me about it. Like, I don't know. He's like, fucking oath, you got to come and have a chat to us, man. He's like, I see you every day here. You're good with people. He's like, our job is just people, man. He's like, come in and have a chat to our insurance kind of team leader and just see what you think. He's like, no obligation, but just have a chat and explore it. And so I was like, all right, I better just do my due diligence on this, and went in and had an interview with the insurance and finance guy, insurance at the time. And I was really honest. I'm a pretty honest dude. And he was like, what do you know about recruitment? I'm like, nothing. He's like, what do you want this job for? I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know what I'm doing in my life. So I want to try something completely different. And I think this is way different because I don't even know what it is. And I'm like a bit of a smart ass, like all the time. So he was like, well, what's going to stop you going back to law? And he had an underwriting and like a BDM background in insurance. And I'm like, what's going to stop you going back to insurance? And he's like, good point. And I'm like, if I love this job enough or you want to keep me here, I'll stay, right? If I don't like it, I'll go. And so I kind of said to him, I'm like, look, I'll give you a year of my best. We'll see how it goes. But obviously, if I suck at the job, you can let me go whenever, but I'll give you a year of my best effort. And if I don't like it, I'll let you know along the way. If I like it, I'll commit and we'll do this thing properly. And that was it. I met like another person or two in the business, like one of the more C-suite guys that does like all their like strategy stuff and implementation across the business. He used to come to the coffee shop and I met him and funny as he just sat down and he's like, I didn't know you were a fucking lawyer, mate. What are you doing in the coffee shop? What are you doing here? And we just had a bit of a bantery chat. And he's like, mate, I'd fucking love you to work for our business. He's like, I think you're a great guy and you can add some value. So he's like, why not? And so that was it. I started at Fuse. A couple of weeks later, said to my folks, like, I've helped you out for a while, but I don't, like, I got to do something else here. They were super understanding. They didn't know what recruitment was. They thought I was crazy. But I'm like, well, I don't know what to do and I can't be a lawyer right now. So let's just do this. That was in mid 2021. So I'd been in the coffee shop probably like 18 months at that point, maybe 12, 18 months. So it was a little while. And honestly, I just did recruitment because I didn't want to be in hospitality. I love drinking coffee and talking to people. There's customer service in that capacity is not my vibe. And so I was just like, yeah, I'll go do recruitment and started in recruitment in mid 21.
I've got a theory, right? I have a theory that your parents never actually owned a coffee shop and you got made redundant and you looked for a job and you was going to try and be a barrister, but they'd misspelled it and you just ended up in a coffee shop and you're like, oh, fuck, this is my life now.
Mate,
and then you just never left. You went and sort of pulled you out.
I don't know if accidentally being a barrister would have been any better, mate. They have a tough job. They work fucking hard. They make a shitload of money, but they have a really tough gig and you work for yourself as well. So you got to know your shit. But yeah, I used to joke with people all the time and say, yeah, I just picked the wrong one as well. And I went to be a barrister, but I ended up being a barista. So look, at the time, it was like, I didn't feel like good about it, but I was also like, well, I didn't feel good being a lawyer for a little while. So like, what's the difference? So this is a lot less stressful, a lot less money, but a lot less stressful. And at the point, money wasn't a big deal because COVID was around. So like, it was just getting through things, not about setting goals and making the big career move. It was just like, how do I survive this weird point in time that we're in the world? And that was how I did it. Absolutely.
Some service to society there before you moved on to the next thing. Now, obviously, recruitment, my background, what you've done as well, they trial by fire you, but they also get you doing things. So were you started as a resource or was that the job you was doing initially?
Yeah. So basically when I started, for anyone, I guess, that doesn't understand recruitment, because me and Joe do, a resourcer is someone who is candidate facing and works to find candidates for jobs. And then you've got a recruitment consultant who is generally working with clients as well. And so I started as a resourcer, candidate facing, which made sense because you learn the job briefs, you learn how to find candidates, which is your whole job, finding candidates. Even when you're a consultant working with clients, your job's still to find candidates. So in the end, they get you doing that. I was a resourcer. First month was actually quite good. I missed my budget by like $1,000 and everyone was like, fuck, that was a pretty solid first month for someone who's never done this. And I'm like, I know, I just talked to a bunch of people and tried to put them in a job, I guess. Not having any background or very little background in insurance or recruitment just meant that I just had general conversations with people. All these insurance brokers and claims people were used to talking to an insurance recruiter. So it was the same shit every time they'd meet them. They met me and I actually didn't really know what was going on. So I was just fumbling my way as best I could through interviews. But it was really just a conversation, understanding the person, then coming back to my team leader and being like, hey, this is their skill set, they do A, B, and C. And he'd kind of run me down on what kind of candidate they were. So I was doing the people vetting and learning the skills as I went. But yeah, I was a resource for 3 months. And then the team leader was like, yeah, he'd already handed some clients over because he went on leave for like a week or two unexpectedly. He's like, can you manage some clients? I'm like, yeah, whatever. I manage him in law. So I was like, I'll just whatever. And I just did it. And they were pretty happy with it and got back and said, oh, Dan's done like a pretty good job managing, like no complaints. 3 months in. And he was like, yeah, you seem pretty good at this. Let's just make you a consultant. And so then at the same time, about a month or two before that, we had a new BDM, business development manager, that was focused on bringing new finance clients into the business because they wanted to expand in the finance channel. So he'd started And we weren't like super friendly yet, but we had a little bit of a relationship. And I was just like, well, I don't really care about insurance. And the team leader was already smashing insurance. So I was like, I'll just do the finance stuff because no one's doing it. And I kind of like it. So the BDM would bring on new finance clients. I would manage them from the start. And we just started building this little finance channel up in Brisbane that was recruiting for financial planning, mortgage broking, superannuation, a little bit of accounting. We tried to stay away from that because it's really specific. But yeah, we were just working across that finance field. And yeah, I did that for the next few years.
And let's talk about some of the beautiful things about recruitment, and let's talk about some of the ills.
Yep.
So I guess for you yourself, what were your personal challenges, or what did you really not enjoy when you were doing it?
At the start, I didn't really make the connection, but when you're a lawyer, you don't really talk to your client too much because you have to charge them when you talk to them, right? So you only talk to them when you need to. In recruitment, you have such a high cost service that you may not be delivering candidates on straight away. You have to communicate a lot, like a real lot. And I was not ready for that. I think I'm a good communicator in terms of speaking to people, but the frequency of communication wasn't something I was good at. So that was something that I struggled with at the start because I just didn't know I had to speak to a client every couple of days on what was going on. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the job in the background. I'll tell you when it's done, right? Or when I have candidates. So that was a challenge. When I come into recruitment, the industry, especially in insurance, was really challenging. So finding brokers and having them want to move was just a nightmare. And every client wanted a good insurance broker. So actually finding candidates was really hard. And the other thing, I guess, that always just kind of rubbed me a little bit was it happens in every corporate and company job, but there is still a corporate culture, which is you have a budget, you're here to do sales, you need to make that budget at all times. I'd never been in sales technically. I was a lawyer and then Hoffa, right? And so for me, I understood a budget, but like things were out of my control if a candidate didn't take a job. And I'm like, well, that's not like my fault if they didn't take a job. What am I meant to do? So there was always this balance for me of I am doing my job to the best I can, but there are some things out of my control which are affecting my outcome, and the company still wants an outcome regardless. So that kind of irked me for the whole time, and I knew it would irk me in any job I was in ever. If there is, I'm a person who I always put my best foot forward and try and do my best to get the result. So if somebody comes to me and is like, well, you didn't get a great result, even though you tried, it really rubs me like the wrong way. I'd rather just like the opposite approach is like, you tried really hard, we didn't get there, but like, how do we improve this for the next time? And so for me, that real hard line sometimes, and recruitment is sink or swim, right? Like you come in and if you succeed in the first 3 to 6 months, you're probably going to stay for a while. If you're not successful, you're out the door because you're losing money for the business. So I knuckled down for the first period and really like went hard to succeed because I wanted to make a thing of it as a kind of promised the team leader guy. And I did have success, but every time I'd miss my budget for a month, which was not too frequent, but you know, here and there was always a bit of, oh, what's happened? And I'm like, it's 1 month out of like the last 6. Like, what's the problem here? So that corporate culture that happens in every company, in every area is there. And you're making a lot of money for the company as well. So we had to make 3 times our salary as a budget. So we're making a fair bit of money for the company. And I could see, I'm like, I'm building quite well here. Yes, I'm getting commissions and a decent salary, but like they're clipping a lot of money as well. Like that was always something where I was like, I'm making them a lot. I'm getting a bit. I would like a tiered commission structure, but it's not really a thing. So just kind of, it's everybody who does well in those industries, I guess, because they see the money going somewhere else and go, I could get a clip of that if it was the right structure.
Going back to what you talked about there is probably what I hate about the industry.
Yeah.
Is that having, long story short, having a budget and pushing a budget incentivizes people to cut corners and do the wrong things.
Yeah, 100%.
And it doesn't work in the client's best interest like that. That's one thing I kind of not even pride myself on. It's just one thing that is a matter of fact is like, I can say no.
Yeah.
You say no. I don't have to push everything through. Like not everything has to be a sale because I'm trying to hit a budget. I'm just trying to keep the lights on and do the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think that's one thing that really brings a big stain on the industry, right?
Yeah.
I always say, 80% of brokers are really, really good, and they might be 30%, 20%. That was terrible maths. That are, I'd say, like 90% of recruiters are shit, 10% are good, and they're shit because there are a lot of them are tied in. They're Pommies, Irish, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're working holidays, they're getting sponsored. They're just trying to get their outcome at the end of it. Like, it incentivizes people to do the wrong things.
Yeah, it's not an easy industry to work in because your outcomes are tied to people and people change their mind. So like I was always fine with that. I'm like, if a candidate doesn't take the job, it's understandable. but there was always a business behind it. And there's every recruiter, this is not specific to me. Every recruitment going like, well, like, what are you going to do? Because you have a budget regardless of what the client does, the candidate does. So there's ways to mitigate it, obviously, having more candidates in front of a client for options and not relying on one. Like, but when the industry is tough, you might only have one good candidate to present or two. If the one doesn't want the job, you're back to square one. And that is really, you know, can really like hit you sometimes. Like, oh man, I just spent 6-7 weeks trying to find a person. We got one, then they changed their mind. Now we're back to square one, and all of a sudden the client's 3 months into a brief, the client's on you about no results, and you're doing your best, but a lot of people don't understand how much effort goes in. So it's a really tough job. People either sink or swim, and the joke at our firm was 6 months or 6 years. You're either gone in 6 months or you're there for like 6 years, because you get through 6-12 months. You see and deal with everything. You come out of it fine. You're resilient. You know how to figure it out. And then you can keep mitigating those challenges as you go along effectively.
You learn so much by experiencing so much. Like,
Crazy, yeah.
yeah, like I now run a process where it's not guaranteed that somebody doesn't fall off, but I'm withdrawing people from the process before they're telling me that it's not a go. Because,
Yeah.
It's about the questions that you ask early on and the rapport that you build early
100%.
on. But it's also about not pigeonholing people. And I don't want this to turn into a recruiter's podcast, but like,
Yeah.
questions you ask early and the discovery you do with the person, like, fuck, okay, you've applied for X job, or I've
Yeah.
reached out about X job, but what do you want? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, some people will be like, mate, I want to actually own a fucking bar in Fiji when I'm, in 15 years. And it's like, right, that's a huge pivot away from what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But if people were just thinking about if they can get you and pigeonhole you into this next job, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, again, without turning into a recruitment podcast, but yeah, I think early on I would avoid the red flags from candidates, just try and get them through the process. But then the flags would come up at the end and they wouldn't take the job, or something would go wrong. Then it kind of clicks. You're like, wait a minute. If I manage this at the front end, we don't even waste our time. So if you're getting a vibe from somebody that they're a bit shady, they're not, what they're telling you doesn't make sense, and you start digging on it, which is only an experience thing, I'd speak to a candidate, come out, and anything I used to say to people, if it doesn't make sense, we need to either make it make sense or understand it further. So like the new resources coming in, I'm like, if people are telling you things and you just don't think they make sense, just say to them, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Can you help me like understand it? Right? Because if it doesn't make sense to me, it's not going to make sense to the client either. So like, if you're telling me things and I'm like, that doesn't seem to click, and you're delving into it and they're generally digging a deeper and deeper hole, straight away you're like, oh, there's a bit of something going on here. I'm not too confident putting them forward because of A, B, or C. And then when you're confident enough, you can just call them out on it and ask about it and go, hey, you're giving me some weird vibes around X, and understand it. But a lot of young recruiters or junior recruiters wouldn't even think to call them out. They're just like, I'll put it for the job and hope that they do it. Then you get to the start date and they don't start the job and you're absolutely fucked. So, yeah.
So yeah, it's about asking the right questions, and it's about knowing which ones you need to continually ask. Like, great, hey mate, thanks for jumping on the phone with me 2 days ago. We're now in front of each other on Teams. I just want to know, have you applied for any jobs? Have you spoken to any other businesses? Have you spoken to any recruiters? If you ask them questions again and again throughout the process, like, you get to the point where you're like, you just have to build a relationship so people will be straight with you. But let's segue, but we can still, recruitment plays into a part where you come across each other. So I'm obviously working at LNG at the time. I have this idea in my head to start this business. I get speaking to this lovely bloke up in Brisbane who's like, he reaches out, he wants to be a broker, and like fireworks go off in my head. I'm like, I think I could work with this cunt. I hope he wants to start a business with me. Very early on, I was like, I'm going to try and see if I can pigeonhole and push this guy, even though he said we don't do that, into starting this business with me. But you were obviously very, very ironed on that you wanted to become a broker. So when did that first become a thing for you, working at Fuse?
Yeah. So like I said, I started in mid 21. In mid 22, I think we started, or end of 22, we started doing some franchise recruitment for Mortgage Choice, which was just an absolute nightmare, because not only do you have to find people who want to be brokers, you got to find people who want to pay 15 grand to own a franchise. But as they were pitching us this franchise, me and the BDM were like, man, this is like a good business op. There's a lot of money here. This seems quite interesting. And then we'd also started recruiting a lot of mortgage brokers for businesses. And I was talking to brokers every day, and I just get off the phone and be like, the good brokers, I'm like, oh, they were really good to chat to. Like, that was a good conversation. They were lovely to interact with. And I come out of that, and I just started learning more about what they do as we went along. And then at the same time, understanding the role a bit further and everything that was going on. And I remember I was with a broking client taking a job brief, and I was just, they said, how's work going? And I was complaining about something, finding candidates or something at work and going on a little bit. I was pretty close with them. And I was just like, recruitment's really hard. And I had someone not take a job and it's going to fuck my month up, blah, blah, blah. And then we're all like, oh, well, if you want to work somewhere else and change your career, you know where we are. And I had a laugh and I was on the way back to the office. I'm like, fuck, maybe I actually can do this. Maybe I can actually be a broker. So that was like mid 23 at this point. So I've been at Fuse about 2 years. And I was like, maybe I can be a mortgage broker. I'm like, I'd worked out by this point through recruitment that I really liked helping people with their technical problems. So even as a lawyer, I liked helping people solve their technical problems for them. So I'd kind of worked out whatever I want to do next needs to be solving a technical problem and working with people, because I like working with people. I loved working with candidates and talking to them and managing through that process and helping clients develop and build that business and pointing out little tweaks that we could do and helping them manage their kind of process. And so mid 23, I'm like, maybe I should be a mortgage broker. And then at the same time, the BDM, who'd become a really good friend at this point, got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so he was 27, and this bloke who's 27 sitting beside me battling fucking life-threatening cancer. And so it just opened up this perspective in my head, and it just over the next few months of him working through this, and he's all good, he's clear of it from last year, but he's obviously getting his scans and stuff. But I would just be like, again, what do I want out of this life? What do I want to do? And I'd worked out at this point, I liked elements of recruitment, but I wasn't going to do it forever. So then I started thinking about the broking, and it all just culminated where this guy was battling. And I'm like, I don't care if I fail at broking, but I would regret not trying. So that was kind of August, July, whatever of 2023. And I was like, right, I think I'm going to do this broking thing. I'll finish this year out and then start working towards it. And so over the rest of the year, I kind of just started thinking about how I wanted to get into broking, and I met up with a couple of clients and just generally spoke to them about how they might have started or how their business started, how they bring brokers, and just gathering info. And then started 24, I'm like, right, I'm going to work really hard this year to get some extra commissions, put myself in a position to do this however I want, because I'm going to be taking a pay hit restarting. And then just, again, I got a bit into a couple months into 2024. It was kind of May-ish, probably April, May. And I was like, right, I think I'm ready to do this now. So I started meeting some people for jobs, and I reached out to some brokers that I knew. I was like, hey, I'm looking to make the jump at some point in the future, because I knew them from recruitment. So I wanted to be professional and not say, hey, I'm jumping in a month, but can you give me a job kind of thing? So I just met them and said, I'm looking to be a mortgage broker. Do you think there's any opportunity with your business at some point? I did it with a few clients I really liked and would work for. Then I'd also, through that, been put on to a couple of other people to meet as well. And so, yeah, it was kind of mid 23. I got the idea. One of my really good mates got cancer, and that just stoked the fire for me to be like, I've got to make a choice on what I want to do here. Let's just have a crack. I don't lose anything. If this doesn't work, I can go be a broker for somebody else. I can go back to recruitment. I could do another career. I've already switched twice. What's another change? Yeah, I just really took that fuck it mentality and went, let's have a crack at this and see how we go.
What do you think? How do you think the legal career, recruitment, what two big things did you take from each of those industries that are starting to help you now?
From recruitment, communication and dealing with people, working with people. Through the recruitment journey, I remember looking on the way out that I'd interviewed 1,100 candidates over a few years. That was logged interviews. I'd probably pre-screened and spoken to 3,000 to 4,000, There's not many jobs where you get the opportunity to speak to that many people. And so what it set me up to do, recruitment, was interact with people in a really conversational way to understand what they were looking to achieve, not just in a job, but personally and in their life moving forward. And so it also helped me really manage a process from start to finish, from inception of candidate to placement, which is essentially inquiry for loan to settlement. And so recruitment really taught me communication, client management, people management, and then law. Law just gave me a really broad background of understanding business structures, legal structures, and how to negotiate in a way that isn't making you an argumentative dick. Because a lot of people think when lawyers negotiate, they just argue and complain. But what it really is understanding the other side in a way and trying to, in not a bad way, but a manipulative way, get what you want out of them without them knowing. And so, again, there was this psychology of law and all of the broad understrokes of understanding stuff. Recruitment was communication and people management. And recruitment, I tell everyone, if you're younger, do a year in sales and a year in recruitment or 2 years in recruitment, because you will learn everything about yourself and people that you need to. Like for me, I worked out my values. I worked out like what I was passionate about pursuing. Like there was conversations from people who wanted to leave jobs for all these reasons. You start thinking about that as you're going through and going, wow, like I've never thought of that as a reason. I can tell you, and people won't know this out of recruitment, it's rarely about money. Maybe 10% of the time about money. It's about lack of opportunity, a bad boss, bad culture, a different experience. And so you start thinking about, or I did start thinking about all those things and go, fuck, what do I want out of a job and what do I not want? And I just, over a few months, the diligent lawyer in me thought about broking and it just kept making more and more sense. So I wasn't sure what it would look like, but I thought that's something I want to have a go at. So let's do it.
I can only speak for 50% of that, right? But
Yeah.
going back to recruitment, you can get good at it so quickly for that reason, right?
Yeah.
Because I had KPIs to screen and interview 30 people every single month. So that's 30 people I would have to meet with.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you very, very quickly, at the moment, like if you had 30 deals to work on every single month as a broker, fuck me, you'd be the best broker in Australia in 2 years, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's how people get really good at it. But yeah, what you said there is really, really right. Like you're spending so much time with people.
Yeah.
If, for me, one of my weak spots was presenting in front of people and feeling comfortable in presenting in front of people. You end up doing those things so much in recruitment that it just becomes second nature.
Yeah. Yeah. You get really good at like communicating and running a process with people. And if you're in it for a few years, you get really good at understanding people, I think, as well. Good recruiters who take time to do that. There's still a lot that just want to make a placement and don't think about that stuff. But like I always like to think about the why of things. And I think that helped a lot because, even in jobs, I was there for 3 years and I probably had 3 to 5 replacements in roles, which is a crazy low amount. So for anyone that doesn't know, a replacement is when someone leaves a job or doesn't start and you have to backfill them, essentially replace them. And so, that happened regularly for most people, but for me, that just didn't seem to happen because I was really, I'm like relatively assertive from being a lawyer. So I'm pretty good at running a conversation with clients and I felt like they wouldn't try and take advantage of me and candidates as well. So it was just a good balance of working both sides and having a bit of trusting my gut with the candidate, being like, something's not right here. I don't think this is going to work. And just giving that feedback to them on, I'm not going to represent you. One of the big changes is I'm actually representing you to the client. I'm not working for you. I'm putting you forward. I'm working for the client. So for me to represent you, you have to maybe give me a reason to represent you confidently here. And my biggest strength and weakness is how hard I would go for people if I thought they were great at their job. 1 or 2 times they'd bomb the interview and I'd be like, oh, fuck, I went so hard for that person and I've talked them up to the client and blah, blah, blah. But like, I was so like in the client's corner, advocating for them in the process and just managing that process together between client and candidate, each touch point bringing them a little bit closer. And it means that people really understand each other when they get to placement and you don't end up with a lot of replacements, which is always great in recruitment.
Yeah. Wonderful, mate. And how long are you into broking now? Is it 8 months? No, it's more than that.
I'm nearly a year. So come end of November, I'll be about a year.
Yeah. Okay. And what is your biggest achievement or some of the big wins that you've had so far? Could be anything.
Yeah, so I guess September was the highest lodgements I've had so far, which was good. There's been a consistent build and the last month was the best so far and this month looks quite good again. For me, I'm trying to stack the small wins. So it's just consistency and that first year in survival from what all the other brokers have told me in year 1 and 2. But I mean, going into broking, I just thought I'd be, helping people get loans for houses, but the complexities of some clients and helping them work through that has been really interesting as well, where I have one just about to settle for a guy who has just gone through a divorce. He's still on the mortgage with the ex-partner and he's trying to buy another house and we're getting him off that. And then his wife's ex-partner's just had a heart attack and he's been in and out of hospital. Like there's so much stuff going on and helping them through this. He's just so grateful. And like some extra experience stuff comes in where he's like, oh, his wife and ex-partner, went to settle the other day and he's still on the title of the property. She didn't know she had to take him off. And I'm like, yep, you got to take him off. This is how you're going to do it. So there's been some people that I've really helped. Like there's been a bunch of first home buyers as well who came to me not knowing what they could do. And they're literally like in a house right now. So those kind of wins. I just helped my parents buy an investment property, which is awesome because they no super, no support. Like they didn't build wealth through their lives. They just kind of got through, even with the businesses. They bought those businesses that were successful, but COVID just fucked them. So they literally couldn't even sell the business. They had to pay off their debt, which was pretty shitty when you're in your mid 50s, late 50s. It started at lunch one day. My old man was joking, was like, oh, maybe we should look at an investment. I'm like, well, tell me what you and mum kind of earn now. They've just got some casual jobs that they do. And I'm like, looked at it. I'm like, yeah, you could probably borrow up to like 700 for an investment. Like, we should do this. And they ended up buying a townhouse like 5 minutes from my house as an investment, which they might look to move into when they retire down the track. But like, the opportunity for that to grow over the next 5, 10, whatever years, that's part of their retirement now. Like, they get to enjoy the growth of a 600 property over the next period that they're going to get the benefit of. So to me, that's like a big win, doing something like that and helping someone and going through with those, like I said, the first home buyers where they come to you with no idea what to do or how to get in, and so much challenge in the market. And I feel like I used to get this a bit in recruitment. I talked to a candidate, they're like, you're like my personal like hype man. Like, you give me like a pep talk before the interview and you psych me up. And so I do that with first home buyers. Now I'm like, look, this is going to be hard, right? But like, let's get out to open homes. I'll literally say, I'll fucking come with you. I don't care. I'll come. I'll bring a coffee. Let's walk through. Let's have a chat. Let's talk to the agent. Like, I psych them up to do the process, but I also tell them this is going to be hard. You've got competition, but we can do this. Let's just work on it together, communicate well, and you will get a result. And I've been really fortunate. Like, I saw a stat the other day from a buyer's agent that said, 7 to 9 months to buy a property. Most people that I've pre-approved have locked a house down in like probably under 2 months, because we've just done that upfront piece, which is prepping them for the market, prepping them for the process. And me just genuinely passionate, being like, let's fucking do this. How do we do it? I'm here to help you, so let's go.
What would you say the hardest part of the journey has been so far as a broker?
I'm just taking everything as it comes. Apart from the technical side, I knew learning all the products and technical stuff would be hard. It's a brand new job, right? Some things, I guess, that have surprised me in a little bit of a different way might be a better way for me to think of it. But I thought recruitment's very expensive for clients. Mortgage brokers are generally free. I was like, every client will want to use me. This will be like not hard to get clients and get deals across. But because of that, there's no loyalty to any person, but also people tend to drag their feet a little bit too. If they're not making a purchase and have a contract in front of them or a reason to do what they're doing, they tend to drag their feet a bit. The cycle of the loan process can get drawn out. And then just the general management of everything, like I'm trying to, work with referral partners and have, inflow of leads. I'm writing loans, I'm managing client process, I'm managing settlement. There's so many things when you're running your own business that you have to do outside. So the challenges for me have just been managing all of that stuff, as well as no income for a little while, or low income and cash flow management as well. So it's just all the ancillary stuff to being a broker. And then again, like, the leads thing hasn't been like too bad. I haven't pushed too hard in a bunch of areas of just referral partners, people that I know. I've got a pretty good network of people, but again, I haven't like gone into this year being like, I've got to settle $50 million in my first year. I had some realistic goals that would be in like a good spot to go to the next year, and they're still above what most brokers would do in their first year. So I'm like, if I can get close to those, I'll be happy. And just learning. I have a really good mate who's a financial advisor, and it was only probably halfway through the year I was talking to him about the challenges of the job. And he was like, mate, this first year, you should literally just look at it as a year of learning. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about where you sit. Just learn everything you can in year one. And if you settle deals and make some money, that's a positive. And that just reframed my mindset so well. Because I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, this is a year of learning. I worked hard to build up some safety net of cash. I don't need to make a ton of money. I just need to kind of pay my bills. And I'm in that position of, being fortunate, but working hard for recruitment and making the right choices to do that. And he was like, you don't need to crush your first year money wise, but you need to learn everything to come out the end being a broker who's learned a lot of how to be a broker. Then next year you can go hard and picking up clients and really generating some income if you want to. And that just flipped my mindset straight away. I'm like, that is such a good way to think of this first year. So that's what I try and do. I've worked on so many hard loans. We have a joke at work. I'm in with the brokerage, so I'm self-employed, but work in with the brokerage and contracted to them, which is a bit of a unique setup, but it's awesome because they help with a bunch of stuff. And there's like a running joke that every deal that comes through, it's hard, just ends up on my desk. By no fault of anyone's. Most of them are my deals that I've picked up, but there's just some complexity, and everyone's like, fucking hell, Dan, where do you get these deals from? I'm like, I don't know, but it means that I've seen a whole bunch of hard shit in year one and not just done a bunch of easy refinances and PAYG deals. There's been the whole spectrum of stuff, which has been challenging, but awesome because I love to get my teeth into it.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of respect for you going out and backing yourself. And if there's one thing that really, I
Thanks.
guess, pisses me off, like, it's when I speak to people that are in the industry, outside the industry, that want to be brokers, they have a bit of money tucked away, but they just don't back themselves. And it's like, if you're like this at the start, it's probably not going to work out.
Nah.
If you're looking for the easy route in, you'll probably try and take the easy route out. Simple as
Yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah, like you will, if you go out on your own and you're looking for the easy route, you will end up not getting enough deals through going salaried for somebody, which is does suit some people because they don't want to run a business and do that. You'll make a reasonable income and you'll do okay, but it depends what you want. Do you want to have a job and write loans, or do you want to build a business that you have control over, an asset worth money? You can employ people and give them a job. You can really run whatever you want out of it and build an asset that could be worth a lot of money down the tracks. Depends what people want, like there's a whole range of structures in broking, which is like awesome for people coming in because you can take whatever approach you really want and get a reasonable result. But you can't, our thing at my old job was always, you can't make a decision and then complain about the decision you made. So you can't go out on your own and go, oh, I'm not getting any leads or I'm not doing this. It's like, well, you went out on your own. You know you're going to have to do that shit. If you're not doing it, how's it going to work? Like you've got to put yourself out there to some degree and try things and see what works.
Yeah, and I think it's an industry where everybody wants to help everyone where they can, but nobody owes anyone anything either. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
when I go back to what I said about taking the easy route in, like, what I'm really saying is there's people that have the capability, they have the money put to one side,
Yeah.
they know what they're doing, and they just don't back themselves. Like, back yourself. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
mate,
Because
I think I was talking to someone about this through the week. The way people frame risk is really weird in their head, the way I look at it, because they only frame it around financial risk for one, right? Which is, I'm in a job paying me 100 grand a year and I can't lose that. Firstly, if you're in a job that has a budget, sales, KPIs, 3 months of non-performance, you're out of there. So there's no risk. If you're not good at your job, you're gone anyway. So there's still risk in that job if you're not good at it, right? And the other thing that people don't think about in terms of risk is you can work for a job where you make good money and you do well, but if you hate it, what risk does that tie on your mental health, your physical health, your family life? Like you're literally giving away your soul for something you don't enjoy for like a paycheck, which it might be a point in time that you have to do that, but try and put yourself in a position to go do what you really want to pursue one day, because the biggest regret of people is like not being true to themselves and doing what they want in their life. Like being chained to a sales job you hate because it pays well, if it's not allowing you to do the things you want or feel good, the risk is you die at 50 from a heart attack because you are so stressed and hate what's going on. I don't know, the way people look at risk, like I tried to reframe that as well, where it's just like there's financial risk, sure, but like you could get let go from unless you work for the government or a really big organization that basically can't get rid of you. There's risk in any job that you can get let go and not have an income from it like this. And so people going out on their own, I think it's not that much risk. It's just, I had to talk to brokers about it all the time because we'd have a commission model and they'd be like, oh, there's a bit of risk. I'm like, not if you're good at your job there, isn't it? I'm like, what's the risk in commission? It's just a different percentage of payment. Like technically, I'm getting a percentage of what I bill for this company, right? Just as a salary. You're getting a percentage of your commission that you're making. Yes, it might be a bit more irregular, but if you're good at your job, it'll become regular. So like it comes back to people not backing themselves to do it. So
yeah, I mean, I speak to loads of bankers, right? And there's this one guy that I recall, he was 2 years younger than me, about 26 at the time. You'd be 27 now. That's irrelevant. He was on about 2K base,
yeah,
and he was doing really well, and he wanted to become a broker. And I said to him, I had to say, fuck, mate, you're doing well. You're not getting any younger. You're not going to step away from your salary. I said, when is the gap going to appear? Because if you're doing well now, you're only going to continue doing well.
yeah.
It's only going to become less attainable and less, not achievable, but
Well, his golden handcuffs only get more
Yeah.
golden and more strong because
correct.
it's never like there's no right time. Like I started at the end of November and everyone's like, why don't you start after Christmas? I'm like, why? I'm like, I'd rather go in before Christmas, have 4 to 6 weeks, learn the systems, learn what I can. I don't have to put pressure about writing a deal in that time. Come back in January and I'm a bit fresh. I know the systems, everything's set up to go, but there's no right time. Like before that, there was something else that came up and, pushed the start date a little bit. Then there's something before that. Then there's Christmas. And then it's, oh, well, Easter's coming up and there's always an arbitrary reason to not do something, but that will just push people longer and longer. Just fucking start the thing whenever. And, you're going to move forward from that point. Like the longer you delay it, you're just setting yourself back anyway. So
Yeah, and there's always that bias of like, if my brain thinks this, so does everyone else's. If I'm going, oh, maybe I should just start in the new year,
and like,
doesn't mean that potential clients are thinking that way as well. Do you know what I mean?
And I could tell you, I'm an ex-lawyer. I'm a perfectionist, right? Which I've worked on trying to break that down a little bit because it's not great to have. But Dan who wants to optimize everything, he's like, oh, you need to start here, do A, B, and C. I learned from recruitment. My old CEO used to say it to me all the time. He's like, sometimes you just got to do shit and see what works. It's not about having a perfect plan or process. It's about doing stuff. I was so focused on plan, process, step it all out perfectly. And he's like, you just got to get on the phone and fucking call candidates sometimes and you'll get them. That's it. You don't have to have a perfect mapping strategy to find them. Just get on the fucking phone and call people and talk to them and you'll get one eventually. And I'm like, yeah, it's actually great. It's the same as broking. Sometimes you just have to go to the event, make the phone call the cold lead that's come through from somewhere. And a lot of times they don't work. Sometimes you get onto a winner and you talk to someone great and you go, I just have to put in the work and be consistent with it and the statistics of it will pay off.
Mate, we're approaching the hour mark, which means it's almost time for me and you to part ways. But let's talk about three things. I want three questions that are all very similar.
Yeah.
If there is a lawyer listening to this who thinks, fuck, I don't want to do this forever, what's your advice? Very short and snappy.
As a lawyer, if you don't want to be a lawyer, good question. Go to recruitment, figure out what you want to do. So many young lawyers are getting burnt out and wanting to quit quickly. If you're passionate about your job and not being a lawyer, there's a lot of people who want to be lawyers to be called a lawyer. Think about why you're a lawyer first and what you want to achieve out of it. Because I didn't want to be a lawyer to be called a lawyer and make big money. I actually liked helping people solve their technical problems, the hard stuff. That's why I like doing it. Think about your why when you're young and you've got opportunity. So just take the leap. You're still young. You've got time.
What about if there's a recruiter that has got their industry bug like you have from dealing with clients? What would your advice to them be?
As a recruiter, or if they want to jump out?
They're a recruiter who's basically serving into an industry and they've got the bug similar to you, right? They want to go and join the industry. What would you say to them? Or how would you advise them to kind of make that transition?
Yeah, look, I think having a network of people is helpful, but just I take this wiped up mentality into everything, which is ask questions, learn, understand what you can from other people, and never think you know everything or above other people. Like I'll literally say it at work every day to our support staff and the guy that owns the brokerage, like, hey, dumb question. And like all the time, they're just simple question. I'm like, hey, question. I ask simple shit all the time just to confirm it. So if you're looking to go out on your own, I said before, there's no right time to do it, but there's a way to prepare for doing it as well. Don't just quit your job and jump out and do it because you're going to struggle for 6 to 12 months, but start putting some plans in motion. Meet some brokers, have a chat, understand what they went through and how hard it was or wasn't, where your weaknesses might be and where you need to shore those up and where you're going to be good. And then think about what structure you want to go work for somebody for 2 years and learn the ropes, or do you just want to work for yourself and do it the hard way, but maybe have a higher level of success down the track?
Just want to say thank you, mate, for doing this. I wasn't going to say it at the start. I was obviously most excited to have you on here because we have a lot to speak
man.
about.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
And I appreciate you also as well sharing very early on. I guess I was one of the first people that found out.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
No worries.
Mate, and I'm wishing you all the best going forward. I know that from our relationship off doing this, you are a good person with a good heart and you have people's best interests at heart as well. And in an industry like this, an industry like what I do, that serves you very, very well. So, mate, wishing you all the best.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate you having me on. Look, same goes out to you. Obviously, you were doing the same thing in the recruitment field when I was. So it's been great for each of us to be on our own journeys and talk about the positives and the challenges that we faced along the way. We're about the same age as well. So we're doing the same thing. You're just doing it with recruitment and I'm doing it with broking. And you got a bit of a head start because you stayed in the same industry where I changed. I, as usual, like to make things extra hard for myself, but here we are, giving it a crack and hoping for the best. Awesome. Thanks, mate. Have a good one.
Take care, Dan. See you soon, mate. Bye.
See ya. Bye.